coming today. That's about all the time we have. I will say, first of all, that these questions, many of them are wonderful and far beyond my intellect. There are many I wish I could answer. I wish I could help with, but I am not that intelligent. You all give me much more credit. Credit, is that what it was? See, all right, so I tried to put these in some order, and then it went all by the wayside. So there are many questions here. I'm going to do my best to get it through a few of these. Do you look forward to being a minister for another UU community in the future? I don't know what's going to happen once I get up to Illinois. There is a UU community that is within 4 miles of the condo Gail and I have purchased, and the minister of that community has just retired. So it's about 462 members, lovely building. And should they go through the typical process of interim ministry, I think there will be some time for me to get up there, get my feet wet, get my lay of the land, and see if that might be something I want to continue doing. I've said this before, that this is the most difficult job I've ever loved, stealing that from the Peace Corps. And it takes a lot out of me. And I don't know if I will continue to try and do that. I honestly don't know. I'm going to get up there. I will have a year to kind of think this through. I've told several people that my idea is that I'll get up there and I'll begin to think of what's next on November 1st. I am doing my best to be fully present here at Westside prior to leaving. I want to be with you as we say goodbye. So I don't know what's going to happen. Is there one thing you would recommend change to do to help grow the membership of Westside? What I think sometimes happens, and I don't believe it will be any sort of an issue here, but as congregations begin to grow, they sometimes have more difficulty retaining that small congregational feel. So people come in and we get so interested in talking with one another because we know each other that we sometimes forget the new person who's walked in the door. I was talking to several new members last night and I said, I think there's some courage involved to come to a congregation the first time, particularly if you're not a Unitarian Universalist. You've heard of this tradition, you have decided to come through the doors of this place where you probably don't know anybody, to this faith tradition that some people around Texas in particular are not too fond of. So it takes some courage to go through those doors. And if you go through those doors and nobody says hello, I think that I gave a reflection at a congregation where when me and Gail, my spouse, and her mother and her stepfather showed up, we doubled the size of the congregation that day. And nobody came to talk to us. It was potluck Sunday. One person came to talk to us during potluck. So as congregations sometimes grow, they forget the little things that help them grow. I don't think that will be a difficulty here. This one says, I love your speech. How can you be an excellent speaker? One of the things I did long ago was join Toastmasters. And Toastmasters is a great organization because if you stick with it, if you go through the entirety of the program, which I did, you will have to do about 100 speeches. And you cannot do anything but get better from the first speech you gave until that 100th speech you gave. And it is the requirement to do it over and over again and to emphasize different things when you're doing that. So whenever somebody talks to me about, in seminary they have you do these classes in homiletics, and they talk about the sermonic loop, and they talk about all of these. It's all fine and good, but I got more actual doing, speech making, reflection, creation out of Toastmasters. If you want to become a good speaker, I think that's a great place to start. It says, what are you most happy about in leaving for work? Today is not a good example of that, but I really do dislike the heat. I really, yeah. I was born right over here. Is that Harris Methodist?
Yes.
Yes. Anyway, I was born this close from here. My parents first, when I was born, was living on Wayside Drive. I have lived here, with the exception of going away to divinity school. I have lived here all my life, and so I'm not only just leaving you all, I'm leaving everything. And my mother is still pissed off at me. She is still angry at me. I'm going to leave today after church and go up to Chicago for a couple of weeks before I come back for this final time. And my mother won't see me off. She will not say goodbye. So I'm leaving everything I know. When I told my father that Gail and I were moving to Chicago, he said, well, you were finally going to get those winters that you always wanted. So when I was a kid, we had 10 acres of land out here south of the city, and winters were my favorite time. I would go out there and play with the cows and run, and they would run with me. And when summer started coming around, see, you can always put more clothes on, ladies and gentlemen. But when you begin to take a lot of your clothes off, usually the law is called. And in my position, that is not a good thing. Do you think that fried Oreos taste good? I do not know the answer to that question. There's one that asked me if I am Batman. I am not. I am not Batman. There is one here, and there's another one that is similar. Okay. One of them asks if I believe in a deity, and the other says, what do you sense is the direction of the UUA in terms of God talk? Is humanistic atheism on the rise, waning, or maintaining? I do not believe in a deity. And this may be, I sort of warned you prior to this that I may say something that you don't like, and that might hurt our relationship. I hope this is not it. I have not. My intention on Sundays is not to talk about humanism. My intention on Sundays is to try, as best I know how, to talk about Unitarian Universalism and how Unitarian Universalism helps us in guiding you and I to become better human beings in the here and now. So, the UUA's move that some of us have noticed towards God talk, to me is not very useful. Because when I hear, we all make assumptions, right? When I hear a Presbyterian minister talking about God, my assumptions are such that I think I know what that person is talking about. When I hear a Unitarian Universalist minister talking about God, I begin to wonder what that person is talking about. And so when I hear the spiritual, God-laden talk, I'm trying to work in my mind at the same time this person is talking, what is the message? What is this person trying to say? So I'm doing a lot of stuff up here trying to translate, not knowing if the way that person uses the language is the way that I would use the language. So what I do, I think, what I try to do is speak plainly. To say what I mean and mean what I say. There are questions that I don't know how to respond. I don't know that there's not a God, but the evidence to me is such that I'm comfortable saying or believing that that is not as important to me as what we're doing in the here and now, as we strive to be better human beings, to be a better community. Now, I said this at the first service, but the beauty, I think, of Unitarian Universalism is that you don't have to believe or not believe the way I do. What I think is important is that you make it safe for me to believe or not believe the way I do. That you welcome my thoughts, and that we can engage one another, talk about these things, and if we come out at the same place, hallelujah, whatever hallelujah means, right? If we come out in different places, we shake hands, we are respectful to one another, and under this umbrella of Unitarian Universalism, we still believe in the here and now and doing good things with good people in the community. We have this covenant together that says we will relate to one another. And I said this morning that the wonderful, wonderful thing about Unitarian Universalism is that we can be so very individualistic. And the thing that hurts Unitarian Universalism the most is that we can be so individualistic. Because it is difficult to create community around people who are very, very individualistic. Community is a give and take thing, and the place where I have been knocked, I think the most during my time, is that I am not spiritual enough. And so I've said this many times up here that no matter on any given Sunday, I'm bound to piss off somebody, right? Because our theological breadth is so immense. Whatever I say this Sunday may honk off this group or this person. Whatever I say this Sunday may honk off this group or this person. But that, I think, is part of it. And I think what Unitarian Universalism allows me to do is speak my truth as I see it, for you to speak your truth as you see it. And that together, we know that you and I, whether we believe in a deity or not, have much more in common than we do with the vast majority of other folks around here. Somewhat along those same lines, when you came to Westside, you were a humanist minister, but chose to become ordained UU minister. Why did you make this choice? And there is a process that UU ministers go through called the fellowshipping process. It is, in my estimation, a fairly rigorous process, and I won't go through the details because we don't have the time for that, but it takes several years to go through the process, and when I decided to go through the process, it took me 3 years to complete it, and many of you were very helpful to me in that. Anybody can be a minister of a UU congregation, ordained or not. Congregations have the right to call their own clergy. And I was contracted and then called here prior to ordination. But I believed that it would be easier for me to walk amongst the other UU ministers, because I have meetings with those folks, I go to conferences with those folks, if I had gone through the process. And at the time that I decided to go through the process, Westside had kind of gone through 2 ministers in fairly quick succession. And I thought, well, I could very easily be the third in this quick succession. And the UU ordination would allow me to go to another congregation much more easily. Had I not been fellowshipped or ordained, my packet would not be likely to be accepted by other congregations. So I sort of did it in a way of self-protection, as well as being in what the ministers call right relationship with one another. And this question, I think, may have to be the last, but it is one that pops up every now and then, and I'm very glad that this question is asked. I'll read the whole thing and then respond to it as I can. It says, why didn't you do reflections every week? This is not a UU requirement, is it? Is it because you were smart enough to put the number of reflections you'll do every year in your contract and no one said no to you? We would want to hear you every week if you sucked. It says, your reflections are great. I am glad that has been asked. And I do try when people ask, why do you not give a reflection every week, I try to hear that as a compliment. You know, we want to hear you every week because we enjoy your reflections. There are 2 pieces to this. The first is that the full-time minister prior to me had the same contract. So that minister did 30 reflections a year as a full-time minister. I wanted, as a full-time minister, I asked to be given that same number. It seemed fair to me. What is typical is that UU ministers are present 3 of the 4 Sundays a month. Now, many UU congregations still today will close down for 2 months during the summer. So, what most UU ministers get is 4 weeks of vacation and 4 weeks of study time. That's about equal to 2 months, right? So if you are supposed to be present 3 out of, let's say, 4 weeks, and you are there for, let's say, 10 months, because you get 4 weeks of vacation and 4 weeks of study time, that's 10 months at 3 times a week, a month, right? So that's 30, right? So many UU ministers still today, I'm on a UU ministers discussion list, and around March of every year, the questions begin to go out, what are you going to do during your 2 months off? Well, we decided when I first became full-time here that there was too much activity going on during the summer for me to be gone for 2 months every year. And so instead of being here that regimented time, I extended it to 12 months, the 30 reflections over 12 months rather than 10 months. So there is some wiggle room with that, but most UU ministers will do about 30, 32 reflections a year. It's how it is spread out that may look different in other congregations. I hope that helps understand. I hope it explains a little bit. I think it is likely that it will be very similar for the next minister you have here. That's probably going to be a fairly common expectation of youth ministers. There was one of the members of the congregation said, Southern Baptist ministers only have one book they have to read that they preach out of. And I know you've got a whole lot of books that you read. It's, of course, not actually accurate, but it's kind of funny. Thank you for your patience with this. I hope there was some value in this. If not, I apologize. We'll be together one more time. I'm going to, like I said, Chicago for 2 weeks. I'll come back. The 27th of this month will be my final Sunday here, and that's when we will say our permanent goodbye. I've got some things that I'd like to say that day. I'll say those for then. But thank you for being here today. Thank you for your questions. I'm sorry I didn't get to them all. I'm keeping them in my pocket here, and I'm going to actually take them with me on the plane and continue to read through them. Why don't we rise and bow your spirit and joining singing number 123, Spirit of Life. We'll just sing it through one time.